I want to thank you for being the ones who got up early to make the most out of this incredible event. So thanks for all coming. I'm going to try to make it worthwhile for all of you. My name's Adam Cheyer. I've started 4 companies in the last number of years. So Siri, which sold to Apple and has now been on about 2 billion devices. Change.org is the world's largest petition platform with almost 500 million members. Viv Labs sold to Samsung. It's on hundreds of millions of devices. And Sentient is a pioneer in machine learning. So my plan for this talk is to give you my best lessons, tips, learnings to help elevate everybody from those companies. And then if you say, okay, I want to be an entrepreneur, I want to be a founder, I want to be an investor, but I don't have an idea, I'm going to give you a suggestion about what the most important thing that we need to work on will be. So let's begin. So just some number of years ago, I was in my 40s, and this picture of myself, when I look at it, it says sadness. And I was lost. And I was feeling stuck. I was in a job, I'm working on it, but I felt like it was going nowhere, and I didn't have a purpose. And the question I asked myself is, what can one person do? I'm just one person. There's a whole world. I can't have impact. And I put this here, and I look at this, and I'm like, oh, I was in such a dark, deep, lost place. And what I did, when I have these moments when I feel like I'm not fulfilling maximally my life, this is my greatest lesson. And the tool that I've used to achieve everything I've accomplished so far, it's a little bit complicated, but I'll explain. I call it a verbally stated goal. So the idea is that life is short. I don't know why we're here. It's a gift. I know the most important thing we can do is we need to maximize the time we're here. Right? If we're not living our fullest life, we're wasting it. We're wasting the most precious thing we have, which is time here on this planet. So I think of life as like a book. Every book has chapters. And so if you're living life and you're like, yes, I'm killing it, this is great, well, keep doing it. Go, make it as powerful as you can. But at some point, you will feel stuck. You'll feel frustrated. There'll be a change in your life. Maybe you get fired from your job, or you get married, or you have a child, or you will be a different person. And when you're coming to a chapter change, as I was in that picture, here's what you do. You focus on the core feeling, the emotion, your need at that time. Maybe you're frustrated. Maybe you desire something. Maybe you need something to feel fulfilled. Once you have that emotion, you turn it into words, and then you tell everyone, this is what I'm going to do. Even if you have no idea how to do that. You say, I'm going to do this. And that becomes a verbally stated goal. And if you do that, if you put words out that capture your core need, 2 things happen. Number 1, you start to believe it. You start to commit to it. You're like, oh, I just stood up in front of 100 people and said, I'm going to do this thing. I better get working on it. And people start to help you. They come, they say, oh, I know this person who could, or I have an idea. And by putting the words out there, it works. And I've done this since I'm 21 years old. I've had chapters throughout my life. I've accomplished every dream by saying I'm going to do this thing. So my best tool, a little complicated, but it's worth it. Try it in your life. So here's an example. At the time of this photo, 2006, I had all these ideas, but I felt stifled. My job didn't let me get them out. There were politics. And I didn't think what I was working on would be worth anything. So my verbally stated goal for 2007 was, I'm going to create 5 projects that can impact users in 2007. And I had a follow-up goal in 2008. After I've built 5 different ideas, I'm going to take 1 major, 1 minor, and make companies out of them and try to bring them to the world. Now, I had no experience as an entrepreneur, but I put it out there. So what happened? This was my major. I started a company called Siri with Dag Hitlaus and Tom Gruber. This picture I look at, I'm already happier. You can tell this already. This is a good thing. So we worked hard. We were about 20 people. We launched a free app in the App Store, one of 2 million or 3 million apps at the time. And people started to use it. It was exciting to us, right? We had launched an app. So one of the users was this man, Steve Wozniak. Steve Wozniak is co-founder of Apple. He was the tech guy, the one who built the computer. Pretty amazing. And if you ask him today, what is your favorite app of all time? Now, this is a guy who not only started Apple, he stands in line to buy their products and he'll tell you what's good and what's not. He says, my favorite app was Siri. But not the Siri that's in everyone's phone. The original Siri that was in the App Store. It did amazing things that never made it into the later version. I'm very proud of this. So this was one of the things that really was a great moment for me when I learned that. But another Steve was watching. So we're in our office. We had launched. We're about 2 weeks in. And all of a sudden the phone rings. And it says, Apple, Cupertino. And we're like, Apple's calling us. And we're like, swipe, swipe. It's on our iPhone. We're like, answer, answer, answer. And it wasn't picking up. We're like, come on, answer. And we pick up, and then we hear, hey, it's Steve. What you doing? Want to come over to my house tomorrow? And we're like, Steve Jobs is calling us? I mean, like, he's CEO of the company. We're a tiny little company and we launch a free app. I mean, how does he find the time to call every single app developer out there? I don't know. It must take time. So he comes, he says, you know, come over to my house. We talked for 3 hours about the future of technology. And then he said, I want to buy your company. And we're like, wow, we're very flattered. Thank you, not interested. Goodbye. True story. And we left. He came back about a month later. We had more discussions. He made it clear he understood our vision of what we wanted to do with Siri. And we eventually said, OK, we'll change the world more with Apple than without. So this is kind of every entrepreneur's dream, right? I just started a company. We launch a free app. Steve Jobs calls. 2.5 months, we're working at Apple. It's perfect. I do want to say, though, if it seems a little quick and a little easy, it did take 17 years of work before we got to that point. So my first version of Siri was in 1993, the year before the first web browser came out, Mosaic. So I had been building and trying and working and doing different things. So what seems like the overnight success actually took work. So just, I don't want to make it seem like, voila, that's all it takes is get a call from Steve Jobs. So we joined Apple. February 4th, we launched. By end of April, we're at Apple. About a year and a half later, on October 4th, 2011, just in 17 days, it will be the 10th anniversary of the launch of Siri. we came out with the Apple version that's in everyone's phone. And the very next day, Steve Jobs died. And his admin wrote to me, I just learned a few years ago. She said that, I've been meaning to tell you this for years. I didn't know how to contact you. Steve Jobs was clinging to life to see the launch of Siri. He was sick, he was dying. He said, I need to see the launch of Siri. And he died the very next day. That gave me chills when I heard it. And it was, for him, it was the last great invention that he was bringing to the world. So I'm very proud of that. So Siri launches, and it was, people started using it. They started enjoying it. A movie, Her, came out to talk about what it's like to interact with an assistant. But it wasn't just fun. It was good for business. So the next 6 months, the next 2 quarters, were the greatest technology quarters in history. Profit margins were broken and shattered. The stock price of Apple went from $350 to $650 in 6 months, just selling the iPhone 4S, which was the iPhone 4 plus Siri. And in that time, Apple became the most valuable market cap company in the world, passing Exxon, just from this little idea he had been working on for a long time, and finally said, let me be an entrepreneur, try to learn how to be an entrepreneur and start a company. Now, people say, wow, what did that feel like? What did it feel like to see Siri take off? And here's a lesson that you can actually try in your companies and in your efforts. So when we started Siri, we were just a handful of guys and girls, maybe 5 or 6 of us. And I walked into an Apple store. And on the wall of that Apple store were app icons of all the biggest and most successful companies in the world. Google, Skype, Pandora, and Facebook. And so I always say, if you're starting this, what would success look like? So I summoned my most audacious, crazy vision, and I said, someday Siri is going to be right there on an Apple store wall next to Google and Facebook. And I'm like, it's impossible. It'll never happen. But I pictured it in my mind. And then Siri's launching. Of course, I have to go to an Apple store to see, are people trying it? Do they like it? And this is what I saw. As I walked up to the store, there was a sign saying, introducing Siri, with a plasma display made up like an iPhone running Siri on a loop. And I remember wanting to be one icon out of 100 on the Apple Store wall, and now being the front door, it was, and that has happened to me time and time again, where I imagine the craziest version and vision of success, and then reality comes along, and it's even better. So try that. It's the craziest moment. It's the moment that makes it all worthwhile. So that's some of the lessons from the Siri chapter. I now want to talk about another person I met, Ben Rattray. Ben was in Washington, D.C. He had moved to California, and this was 2006. And we were, at that time, social networking was starting to take off. And we connected and said we should build a social network for social activism. And so we started a company called Change.org. I was the first developer, and I built the first version of the website. Today, there are nearly 500 million members. And it's based on a petition. So if you see anything wrong in the world, you start a petition. You say, I want this person or this organization to make this change. And here's why. And if people agree with you, they click, they sign. And in just a few seconds, if you get a couple 100,000 signatures, that shines a spotlight on not only a problem, but a solution. And through that, there are victories that happen every day in every sector on every important problem. Yeah, thank you. So how did this vision happen? It wasn't just like, of course, we build a website, petitions, we're done. We actually had to follow the data. So this is the next lesson to try in your companies. So our first version, this is the version that I built, we said we're going to bring together people and we're going to talk and discuss about issues like how do we end global hunger, how do we stop cruelty to animals, etc. And we did some of that. And then we said, no, the way to make change in the world is to support nonprofits, and we'll use social networking to get viral contributions. Not just one person donating $100, but the network will see what you've donated and pitch in, and that'll make $1,000. So we did that. We then said, no, the way to make change in the world is to find the right politicians, your representatives, and let them know what they need to do to represent you. So we had the first click to call, where you would click and all your friends in your social network would click, and they would all call the politician's office and leave a message at the same time. And he'd go, wow, people care about this. When we had a speaker yesterday from the Barack Obama campaign, Barack Obama chose change.gov as his website. So for a little while, people got confused and came to change.org. Got a little bump in user spike. And Barack said, I want to hear ideas from America. So change.org ran an idea competition that we would present to the Obama campaign about what America wanted to know. We had celebrity change makers. I see Bill Cosby was featured on our homepage, 2008 or 9, something like that. Different story today, but trying to harness the power of celebrity to make change. When the economy crashed in 2009, we ran the largest job board ever. For social causes. We had a gifting platform. You could give 1 square meter of rainforest saved or 1 carbon emission neutralized. We tried everything. But what we did right was we instrumented the system. We watched what the users did. We even had this little corner feature called Start a Petition. And we said, this is doing pretty well. So we moved it to the center and made it a little bit more about petitions. And today, this is what it looks like, the world's largest petition platform. We got rid of all the other stuff. And what happened, that's not what our vision was initially. We just kept trying things. But by following the data, this is the number of members on average over the years. So the first 5 years, rounding up to 1 million users, we had 1 million users, rounded up. 1 million users year 2, 1 million users year 3, 1 million users year 4, 1 million users year 5. 5 years of no growth. 5 years of trying things. Then 1 to 10, 10 to 25, 25 to 50, 50 to 100, 100 to 150. And today it's 450 million members. So you have to keep trying. Follow the data. You don't always know the answer. Let your users lead. So the last part is, okay, now you know how to be an entrepreneur, but you say, what should I work on? I believe entrepreneurship. I've worked in the biggest companies of the world. I've worked in academia. I believe the startup is the greatest change engine in the world. And I'm going to tell you the most important thing to work on. And I learned this from the greatest entrepreneur in the world. The greatest entrepreneur in the world. So who is that? Who's the greatest entrepreneur? You could say, well, computing. Computing has changed everything. The inventor of personal computing, the mouse, the Windows, the GUI, It must have been Steve Jobs when he came out with the Mac, or maybe that other guy, Bill Gates. One of those two has to be the greatest entrepreneur because computers change everything. Yeah, but wait, the web is even more important than just the computer, the desktop. Maybe it's this guy, Sir Tim Berners-Lee. He created HTML and the first browser. But social networks, I mean, Facebook, there are more than 1 billion people. It's got to be Mark Zuckerberg, the greatest entrepreneur. Or, COVID, we live in a virtual world. Zoom, whoever started Zoom, maybe the Skype guys, they were earlier than Zoom. Maybe they're the greatest entrepreneur. Document editing, it's so important. Who did that? Oh, I don't remember. What if I told you the greatest entrepreneur, there's one man who invented all of these technologies. His name is Doug Engelbart. He has the patent for the mouse. He did the first hyperlink systems, the first text editors, first multimedia, the first email systems. And in 1968, he did what's called the mother of all demos. You can go online, you type it in, mother of all demos, you will find the video, the 90-minute video from 1968. When people programmed punch cards using paper punch cards, he showed us the future with the internet, the mouse, the GUI, social networking, video conferencing. You could fade the face of the person you were working with behind the text. And he said, why did he create all this technology? He said, someday the world is going to be faced with complex global issues. And unless we get better at solving these problems collectively, we will not survive. Well, what kind of issues was he talking about in the 60s? Pandemics, climate change. This is an undoctored photo from this is my city. It looks like some sci-fi movie. Hunger, poverty, water issues, pollution. We are now being faced with all of these and many more. So he said, well, which problem should I work on? And this will be my last thought that I leave for you. He had an insight. He said, I could spend my life and my career trying to solve any one of these problems, but the answer is I should solve the meta problem. If I can help people think smarter and better, if I can help the world solve problem solving, that will have the greatest return on investment. So if you don't know which of these to work on, maybe you have your passion, you have your expertise. This to me is something that you might think about. How do I help the world solve global problems? He did it through a technique called collective IQ. You can read about his particular approach. It's genius, but there are many ways to do it. He had dynamic knowledge repositories, bootstraps, Kodiak. There's a lot of learning there if you're interested. So in summary, I'm going to skip this one. Here are some lessons taken from my journey so far. So if you're coming to a moment in your life where you're feeling stuck, focus on what's missing. Turn it into words and tell everyone you meet, this is what I'm going to do, a verbally stated goal. Once you start on that journey, visualize what does success look like, because it's oh so fun when reality trumps your greatest vision. It may not happen instantly, so you have to try and follow the data, instrument and understand where people will lead you. And that's what David from the Obama Foundation was doing. He said, you have to listen to the community. And then finally, if we need more people in this time and in this age to focus on leveraging technology to help us get smarter about thinking of the greatest, how to solve the greatest problems in the world. So with this, I started out just some years ago saying, what can just one person do? And I can now confidently tell you that one entrepreneur can change everything, that there's nothing special about me. I had no particular skills. You can do this. You can change everything, and the world needs you. So thank you.
Thank you, Adam.
Inspiring talk. Thank you. We have some questions from Slido, and you can also put in some now if you want. So the first one is, you foresaw our use of audio. What's something you envision to happen and look forward to in the future that will change how we live our lives?
That's a great question. It's surprising because even though I'm a technologist, I don't get too excited about most technologies. I don't use the latest things. One thing that I am afraid of, but think will happen in my lifetime, is brain-machine implants. And the reason I think that is that there are already cochlear implants. People who are deaf actually have brain surgery. They insert chips in your head, and your brain with neuroplasticity adapts to take software signals and turn it into hearing. Even if, and I think that is crazy. And we will see that where we don't need phones or screens or augmented reality. We'll have a machine in our head that can hear, that can see and control all of that from inside our mind.
Yeah, but you said you were afraid of it. Why?
Well, can you imagine if you had chips in your head and the privacy issues and how do I turn off notifications, you know? And I mean, it's scary to me, but I think it could actually happen in my lifetime.
You said that you're not that tech guy, but as you can see, we have this one person, Anonymous, who's really great at asking questions, but that's not nice. Asking, how did you come up with Siri? So if you're not tech guy, how did you do it?
So this was in 1993. We had a PC on our desk, and I said, someday there will be computers around the world with content and services we want to access, instead of just the software on our desk. So we need a way to discover it and interact with it. I never thought we would use documents and hyperlinks as the way to do things in the world. I thought everyone would have an assistant, and you could just say, I want to know this, or I want to do that. And the assistant would know where everything was and help you do it for you. So for me, Siri was my conception of the internet. And then the web the next year showed me a different way. But I still think that vision is compelling even today.
Yeah. So the next one, how did you maintain your motivation and dedication to building Siri for so many years? Did you ever feel stuck or like setting the project aside?
Yes. But when people ask me about success and failure, failure is only when you give up.
Yeah.
If you keep going, you didn't fail. You just learned something new that wasn't the right way. And so for 28 years now, 28 years, I've been trying different approaches because I'm interested in it. I'm curious. I think it's a good idea. I keep pushing and exploring. Sometimes I take a little break and try something else. But if it's important to you, keep going and you'll never fail.
One more?
Yeah, we have this guy really want to know about crypto and DeFi. We had the same questions before, but what's your take on that?
Again, I'm not the best person to ask. I don't like that cryptocurrencies and use so much computing resources. I literally, every time someone says, I have a Bitcoin, I see like acres of forest burning somewhere, just in energy costs. So I'm a little, I don't like that aspect of it. I think it could go mainstream at some point, but I talk about trends and triggers, and I'm still thinking about what's the trigger that will set this whole, that will change our behavior to get rid of fiat currency and arrive at crypto. We're not there yet.
Do you think it's important to follow the data before as well as during a venture?
Follow the data. It's one of my lessons. So make sure, the one thing is you may not get everything right, but instrument everything and learn from it, and that will help you course correct and get on the correct path.
Yeah.
We talked just before you got on stage with the exhibition here, all the startups and the entrepreneurs, and talked about how you see the future. And you said something about it's a positive future when you walk around here. Can you elaborate a little more about that?
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of entrepreneurship. I believe humanity and the ingenuity of humans is the answer to everything. We are genius, and we are a miracle. I had a slide, what about artificial intelligence? I thought that was going to solve it. AI is a tool that is wielded by the genius that is the human mind. So I think, I am optimistic. We are going to be faced with crazy hard problems to solve in the next years and decades. But with your help, with your brain power and resilience, you will lead us. You will find a way to solve these problems. So that's my call to action to everyone here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And I'm Cheyer, everyone.